it's important to me. This is an intentional community, and I don't know if any of you saw the article in the paper yesterday about the Dalai Lama that visited William and Mary, but he was talking about community and making a difference in your community and building the community with the friends and family and so forth that you really care for. So this is building our intentional community. In his book, The Different Drum, M. Scott Peck writes, "In my lecture tours across the country, the one constant I have found wherever I go, the Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, Southwest, or West Coast, is the lack of, and indeed the thirst for, community. This lack and thirst is particularly heartbreaking in those places where one might expect to find real community in the churches. In our culture of rugged individualism, in which we generally feel that we dare not be honest about ourselves, even with the person in the pew next to us, we bandy about the word community. We apply it to almost any collection of individuals: a town, a church, a synagogue, a fraternal organization, an apartment complex, or a professional organization, regardless of how poorly those individuals communicate with each other. It's a false world. If we're going to use the word meaningfully, we must restrict it to a group of individuals who have learned how to communicate honestly with each other, whose relationships go deeper than their masks of composure, who have developed some significant commitment to rejoice together, to mourn together, and to delight in each other, and make others' conditions our own. Peck continues, "The intentional community can be part of our normal everyday lives, contribute to our wholeness, and even prevent or minimize our crisis. The intentional community, however, does not happen by accident. It must be designed or created." So, if we're going to create an intentional community, how would it work? This community would be a safe place precisely because no one is attempting to heal you, to convert you, to fix you, or to change you. Instead, the members accept you as you are. You are free to be you. And being so free, you are free to discard defenses, masks, disguises, free to seek your own psychological and spiritual health, free to be a questioner, a seeker of truth. In an intentional community, you are free to become your whole and holy self. Lisa. Some odd years when we moved from Richmond, I became involved with the adult literacy community, and the lady, Judy Taminger, that was training me, she kept talking, "Oh, Pastor Bangle, oh, Pastor Bangle," and who is this Pastor Bangle? And so I did the hospice training, and I met Pastor Bangle and his wife, Jo, and have known them for quite some time. I told someone if I were not a Unitarian and he were pastoring a Lutheran church, I'd probably go listen just to hear what he has to say. He's a retired Lutheran minister from Marion. He works part-time as a counselor, LCSW, and is still involved with a lot of other things, and I am delighted to introduce Reverend Bangle.
just to start in an honest way, I have no commitment whatsoever to getting us out of here by 11:45. That was a late hit, and I say not much gets by me, but that didn't get past me. I have a commitment to getting through whatever I've got in my notes here, which will certainly go a long way toward doing exactly that. When we talked first, I was in the middle of some thoughts on this topic of truth, and so I said that this would be a great time to put some of this together. It used to be so simple for us. It was as simple as the test said mark T or F after each statement. And you could look at the statement and you could mark it, T or F. Every statement was clearly true or false. At least it was to the teacher. It seldom was that true to me. I would say, yeah, it's true except, or, there's some possibilities here. And I had an awful time with true and false tests. But that's not the case anymore. And I think you've noticed it, especially in the election season. And not just the election season, but with the electronic media that we have, that it's been harder and harder to deal with what is true and what is not. We have now truth squads. They're on the internet everywhere, the ones that will fact check you. It used to be fact check was for when there was this thing about this little kid that was about to die and wanted to get as many get well cards as you could, and they're sending you these letters and things, and you could go to fact check and find out, is this really the case or is this just some kind of hoax? You could check out these internet hoaxes about things that sounded like they just weren't going to happen. But now we fact check everything. I've had people fact check my sermons on an iPhone in real time. I'm not making this up. I will not tell you something that I do not believe is true. I've actually had it happen on several occasions where I'm now being retired. I go to a lot of different churches, but where I'd used an illustration that was describing this thing, and I couldn't quite get exactly what I wanted to say. And after the service, I'm standing outside. This guy comes up to me with his iPhone and says, "Here it is." If that happened only once, I would have said it was a fluke. It's happened at least twice, and so I'm afraid to say anything. People will fact check you about whatever. If you got an iPhone, just turn it off. We'll see where that goes. But you got these things where they do, what is it, pants on fire, liar, liar, and then the other one is how many Pinocchios did that get? And they fact check actually almost in real time. And they've come up with this statement, mostly true but misleading. That would not have passed the dad test in my home. When I was growing up, mostly true but misleading was an outright lie, son, and you better not tell any more of those. We grew up with that, having a sense of knowing what was true and what was wrong, what was false. But it's gotten to the point now where no matter what happens, in November we will elect the second biggest liar in this country. The first biggest liar will be the loser. How do you respect someone in an office when you know from everything you've heard that they're lying? They just don't know what the truth is. In the last, the first presidential debate, one of the people said, you can have your own house and your own plane, but not your own facts. And I wanted to say, actually, sir, that's not true. You can have your own facts. You're entitled to your own facts. We're all entitled to your own facts, and you obviously are entitled to your own facts because half of what you said doesn't register with my facts. And if you don't believe that, you can have your own facts. Try starting a discussion with just about anybody on global warming. See where you get with that. So, well, the facts are, no, the facts are, my facts are, and your facts are. And they can come up with stuff like, what was the one last week? dinosaur flatulence that caused it back in the last. I did not make this up. I saw it on TV. It's on the internet. No, it was actually a congressman that said it, and I saw it from the tape. What is true depends on who you are. And we are entitled to our own facts. We do have our facts that are fact to us that may not be to anybody else. And I don't know how much you do with that, but it is true. Can anybody see that? What that is? That is a real silver dollar. It is silver, right? Collected by my dad and kept in his safe deposit box for a long time, and I got it. Not my sister. There were some others that I got. This is the oldest one. All right. Tell me the truth. Is it heads or is it tails?
To me, it's heads.
Okay. What does that mean? I said when you came to the door, not let's get by.
It means it's tails to you.
That's exactly right. We can stand here and argue over this all day long. You'll look at it and you'll say, that is Lady Liberty's head. It's heads. And I'll say, no, it's tails. And we'll argue that back and forth, and who's right? Both of us are right. What this is, whether it's heads or tails, depends on which side you're looking at. And if you come around and look at my side, you'll say, oh, that's the eagle. That's tails. So it really depends on where you're looking. Anybody watch South Carolina and LSU last night? Was it a good game or not?
It was a sad game in the end.
It was a lousy game. It was a lousy game. Thank you very much, fellow Gamecock. It was a lousy game, but if you talk to somebody from LSU, they'll tell you it's a great game. People sitting on opposite sides watch the same game, and one comes out and says it was great, and the other one says it was lousy, which is true. Well, it depends on your point of view. And we have to begin to focus on that when we start looking at what truth really comes down to being. Now, I had the fortune, or maybe misfortune, when I was in college. One year I actually ran track, and that is true, but didn't do very well. But another year I was on the debate team. You know how college debates work? I don't know whether they still do those things like that or not, but they were really great. Every year there was a national college debate topic, and they gave you out a topic, resolved that the government should provide a system of public work, public work for the unemployed. That was the debate team debate thing back in the incredibly early 1960s. So you got to debate this subject, except that you never knew which side you were going to debate. You would be either affirmative or negative, but you didn't know until your team got in there. So you had to have a brief with both. You had to have a brief saying, yeah, this is a great idea, and another brief saying, no, this is a terrible idea, which forced you to look at both sides of the issue and to find that, this is not as easy as I thought it was. There is another side to this. But you already knew what your opponent was going to bring up because you had another brief with all their stuff in there. So you had to get the facts from both sides, and you had to get the statistics so you could argue them from either side. It was a great, great experience, and I think it has served me well, probably better than most of the things that I've learned in college. Sorry, but it was a good experience. I have said that I feel like an analog man in the digital world. And by that I mean that I tend to see things in a continuum rather than in little chunks. That when I wear a watch, I've got a watch that doesn't work anymore. That was one of those that did not tick. It was an Accutron that sang, and the thing did not click. It just went around, the hand went around, and it didn't separate time into minutes. It was just a sweep of time. I love that watch. I don't know why I don't make them anymore. I guess most people are digital. It is 12:15. No, it is somewhere between 12 and 1. It's kind of a time that moves. I see things a lot more cloudy than I used to. But frankly, the digital or the binary world is what most people seem to want. They want a true or false, heads or tails, right or wrong, we know it or we don't know it. That's the thing that I hear more and more from people, and I have more and more difficulty dealing with it. It's especially troubling for a lot of us. And so we've invented some modifiers for truth. Makes truth work a lot easier. We have invented the half-truth. You know what a half-truth is? It's a lie. It's a lie. Excuse me. Half-truth never would get me anywhere. It's just not true. And then we talk about the self-evident truths. Truths that everybody can look at and they're self-evident. They're obvious to everybody, right? Like, no, you're not right. Okay. You've got on to me already. Like Thomas Jefferson when he says, writes in the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, obvious to everybody, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And those words just kind of ring out and we can do them. And you think, Jefferson, of all people, ought to have understood what self-evident is about. Now think about this. Jefferson, writing with a quill pen at night in his study by the light of a candle that was made by somebody and was lit by somebody and was placed on his desk, probably already lit by somebody that he owned. Now, these words might not have been self-evident to that person. Jefferson had that opportunity that most of us don't have. I talk about my children. I say, these are my own children. When he said, these are my own children, he meant I can take them to the market and sell them. These are my own children. I own them. And he could say that about, and this is my own mistress. I own her too. And these are my people that wait on me. I own them. And when he talked about self-evident truth, why was it not self-evident to him that everybody didn't seem created with those self-evident rights? Very little stuff is self-evident. You know, I got something I was going to bring and I forgot it. I got a little thing somebody gave me one time that you can stick your finger in this little hole and snap this thing down. It looks like it's cut your finger off, but it doesn't do it. And right before your very eyes, you can see it and say, that's self-evident. That little thing went right through his finger. How did it not do? That's a trick. It's a trick. I saw a man levitate half of a stage one time up in Roanoke in front of a whole crowd of people. I know he didn't do it, but I saw it. I saw it. I sat there in the audience. Things that seem to be self-evident are not quite self-evident. Those truths, we know that they're not. But the best one is the one that we got from Al Gore's book, entitled An Inconvenient Truth. An inconvenient truth. You know how words split up. Inconvenient, not, together, coming. You Latin scholars, that's what it means. Something that doesn't come together. Something that does not fit. An inconvenient truth. That's a tough one. We'll say more about that in just a minute. But my favorite new word about truth comes from another good South Carolinian, such as some of us are, and proud to say it sometimes, Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert has introduced a word that has made it into the dictionary finally, truthiness. Truthiness. He says it comes from a Latin word, veritasinus. Truthiness, he says. It's a gut feeling. It feels right without regard to logic, intellectual exam, or facts. Truthiness. Truthiness is totally egocentric truth. It's my truth. If I believe it is true, it is. If I believe it is true, it is. That's what makes it true, my belief in it. That's scary when you get into that egocentric stuff, because everybody's got an ego of their own, and some of us got pretty big ones, and when we start arguing about truth, we argue loudly. It's the thing of the old jokes. Don't confuse me with facts. My mind is already made up. I know what truth is, and I don't need to hear any more about it. Well, I suspect by now, maybe, you're wondering if we're ever going to get to the spiritual truth or theological truth, which is really where this comes down to. But if you're wondering that, we're here. We're here. I am a Christian. I speak from that base and that perspective. But I will suspect that you can extrapolate from the things I'm going to say and find a place in your own faith system where they fit. And if they don't, we'll talk about that. When I get into this, and when I looked at the topic, I began with the context of the trial of Jesus before Pontius Pilate. He says, I came into the world to testify to the truth. And then he says, everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. And following that, Pontius Pilate, who's the governor who has the right to decide what happens to him here in this trial, he says, what is truth? I think that's one of the most profound questions in the Judeo-Christian scriptures. What is truth? And they never carry the conversation on anymore. I would love to have heard what Pilate and Jesus had to say about that back and forth. Or maybe they did and nobody took notes and got it down. It's a great question. What is truth? Well, when I get to studying, especially in the scriptures, I start with the word studies. Anybody got an iPhone? You can check this out. The word for truth in the New Testament is aletheia. It means literally not hidden. It's a negative word. It has that alpha privative on the front of it, the A that negates the word, aletheia. And it means not hidden. And so when you hear in scriptures truth, you can translate in your mind the not hidden. And when you start reading it in the various places here, in your own worship and your own services as it takes place, when you hear the word truth, you can see that as not hidden. Not hidden. Well, I'm focusing on the Gospel of John and where I went with this material, because the synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they use this word 10 times together. 10 times. John uses it 27 times. So you get if you're going to mine for this, there's a lot more to dig for in John's gospel. So that's where I went. John's words were written as a theological treatise. They were it was the last of the gospels, and he's trying to make some points. And so you can find some themes that are there, but I think they're themes that are helpful as you put them together. He uses the theme of darkness and light, of hidden darkness, and not hidden in the light. He starts his gospel not as the others do with the birth of Jesus and an infancy narrative. John starts, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then he goes and says, the Word became flesh. And then he says, the light shined in the darkness, and the darkness could not overcome, overwhelm, comprehend, destroy it in some kind of way. That's a beautiful metaphor. When you start looking at darkness, you can be in the darkest room that there is, and you bring in the smallest light, and it lights up the room. But no matter how dark it is, the darkness can never put out that light. The whole dark room is not going to close that in, but a little bit of light begins to show you enough to where you can find your way around and where you can see things. So it's a beautiful, I think, metaphor that he builds on, and he builds all the way through there with it. The other metaphor that Jesus uses there is the shepherd and the sheep. And he talks about shepherds and sheep in terms of not having fences and things like that, but where the shepherd leads the sheep. The sheep hear his voice, and they know which shepherd is theirs by the sound of his voice. And it's a metaphor that people would understand then. I don't understand it. I see sheep on the hillside, and I know they're not going anywhere because there's a fence that's going to keep them in. But the shepherd leads those sheep, and when they're part of that shepherd's flock, they know which one to follow. And so it establishes that kind of relationship. These become lessons from life, things that people have observed, that they can accept, and in some way maybe have become self-evident truth to them. He starts with that, what people believe, what they know, and what they've got in common, and what they've seen, and all, and then begins to move from there to this, from darkness to light, from what is hidden to what can be seen. I believe he challenges his followers to trust and to follow. He says things like, those who do what is true come to the light so that it may be clearly seen, their actions. And then he says, if you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. If you continue in my word, then you're truly a part of this group, this flock, this people that understands in some way, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. And then at the close, near the time of his death, Jesus gets into this discussion about the Holy Spirit. And he calls him the Spirit of truth, the Spirit that will be among us to guide us into all the truth. And that's pretty much where he goes with truth, all the way through John's Gospel. It rings true for me, which gets back to the truthiness thing. It rings true for me to see that as a real possibility, that we get out of the darkness, out of that hidden part, and move into something that is a little clearer, a little more light, to where we see it a little more clearly, and maybe see it a little more clearly with each other. From your own statements here, you say that, where is it on the back over here? Yes, it is. First, I got this off the website. I read the website. You have to be careful what people put down here. People, I got a computer and everything. It says that as a congregation here, you promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I believe that's what you said at the chalice lighting. Spoke of the quest for truth and meaning. That that's where you are as a congregation, as a group of people, that you're looking at this as a quest for truth and meaning. And then also it says on the back of the bulletin here and on the website, we are co-creators of living truth. Now I just put a question mark by that because I'm not real certain what that means to me. And it would be helpful when we begin to communicate back and forth a little bit to hear some thoughts on that. Co-creators of living truth. I got an idea, but I'd rather hear it from you. Far be it from me to say what it means to somebody else who wrote it. But I believe that truth is a quest rather than a destination. That it's something that we're searching for, and it's a continual search, and it's going to be one of those that we don't look at and say, that's it, that's the truth, that is finally going to be there. Because I think about the time that you find that, you're going to say, whoa, I just thought it was there. It's actually a little farther out. But it becomes a quest, and the word you used in the chalice lighting was a quest. Not a conquest, because it's not something we're actually going to probably get to. It's not simply that with which I agree or accept. It is not egocentric truthiness. We're not going to get away with that. It's funny when Stephen Colbert talks about it, because we know exactly what it's talking about. But we're not going to get by with that. It's often inconvenient, and it's often uncomfortable. I believe that truth challenges us to grow and to expand and to change. Some of you saw A Few Good Men a long time ago. Colonel Jessup, Jack Nicholson, I love. When he gets in the courtroom and he says, "You can't handle the truth." We all know what he's talking about. I love doing, I can do another Jack Nicholson. "You can't handle the truth," he says. And I think that's why we have so much trouble with the truth, because we can't handle it. Why can't we handle it? Why is the truth inconvenient? What keeps us from embracing the truth? Well, first, it causes us or challenges us to change, because it reminds us that we don't know everything, that we haven't got all of that yet, that we're not the only one who's right. It pushes us a little bit deeper, and it exposes a little bit more of us so that a little more is not hidden. A little more is enlightened. And I think really when it comes down to it, it's the F word, fear. We're a little bit afraid of the truth. We're just a little bit afraid of it, which takes me back 4 years when my topic was, "Fear not."